Well, thank you for inviting me to this seminar on Afghanistan. You heard the views from the American side. Now let me share with you what we think. 2014 will be a turning point in Afghanistan, as we all know. Power will be handed over to a new president after elections. The US military will complete its withdrawal. The Afghan National Security Forces will take over the security responsibility for the country. The prospects for all these transitions do not look promising. The new president will have to be a Pashtun in order to ensure broad-based ethnic support. President Karzai was parachuted to the presidency without elections in post-war circumstances in which the US and the West could impose their will. But the US and the West have not been able to manage Karzai, despite having many levers at their command. Can a new Pashtun leader emerge who can assure cross-ethnic support? Will he be able to deliver political stability and a degree of economic development in very difficult circumstances? I don't think there's any clear answer. The US has signed a strategic partnership agreement with Washington, but the follow-up agreement, the bilateral security agreement on the status of the residual US forces in military bases remains to be finalized. The US has failed to secure a suitable agreement in Iraq. If it fails in Afghanistan, it is threatening a zero option, and we've heard some views on that. Whether this is pressure tactics or is a veritable option is not clear. In any case, the fact that this is being considered shows, at the very least, that the US has no clear answer for the future. I hope zero option does not mean zero answer. The ANSF may have numbers and reports that they are performing well, as we heard from Michael O'Hanlon, does not guarantee that they will be able to operate successfully in a post-US withdrawal environment, especially if the US leaves in the midst of a politically unsatisfactory scenario. The ANSF lacks heavy weaponry, air power, and sophisticated intelligence capability. Will they be able to operate as a cohesive force? One does not know. The economic prospects in Afghanistan are not very reassuring, despite the pledges of assistance made by Tokyo and the announced longer-term commitments made by other countries not to abandon Afghanistan. If the US exercises a zero military option, will that at all be compatible with a major long-term economic commitment, especially in a tight economic situation in the US and the Eurozone? Plans by countries to invest in Afghanistan not only depend on internal stability, but will also take some years to yield results that will make any perceptible difference on the ground. Adding to the problem is the general instability around Afghanistan. The internal situation in Pakistan is fraught despite the recent elections. Iran has a new president, but the nuclear dossier remains problematic, and sanctions on Iran have been further tightened. The Arab world is in turmoil, with the so-called Arab Spring having withered very rapidly. Religious extremism is spreading, and this gives political oxygen to such forces battling in Afghanistan. India has to cope with the situation as it develops. We have faced the worst when the Taliban took over in Afghanistan in the mid-90s. We know, of course, what the dangers are ahead and have to play a role in preventing untoward conditions from developing through our political and economic engagement with Afghanistan. India is pursuing, I think, a very responsible policy in Afghanistan. We want precisely what Representative Joe Crowley said just now, a sovereign, stable, democratic, and prosperous Afghanistan, one that is free from extremism and where human rights, especially those of women, are respected. India is doing nothing that is contrary to the achievement of this objective in Afghanistan. We are maintaining very friendly relations with Afghanistan based on equality and respect for their sovereignty. We are not interfering in Afghanistan's internal affairs. We are not arming any particular group or providing safe havens for terrorists or anti-government political groups to carry on violent activities against the legitimate government of Afghanistan. We have legitimate interest in Afghanistan as a neighboring country and every right to be present there. We feel that the international community should not accept the curtailment of Afghan sovereignty by endorsing the principle that the Afghan government should give precedence to the interests of any particular country over that of another. It is for the Afghan government to take independent decisions in a responsible way. India has no intention to occupy the legitimate space that other neighboring countries of Afghanistan seek there. We have established a strategic relationship with Afghanistan. This is anchored in a long-term bilateral and regional perspective. India has geopolitical strategic interests in this entire region, which forms part of our larger strategic neighborhood. Afghanistan, as you know, borders Central Asia and Iran, apart from China and Pakistan. India has had age-old ties with Afghanistan, Central Asia, and Iran, with the history of our country linked to this region over centuries. Central Asia is landlocked, and so is Afghanistan. The development of this region faces a particularly difficult challenge because of this. The entire region needs the broadest possible choices for its development. It is natural for it to look for enhanced ties with India as the biggest economy in Southern Asia that can substantially contribute to this objective, and we are willing to respond. Afghanistan has huge mineral resources that await exploitation. We are ready to invest large sums in this sector, beginning with iron ore extraction. Afghanistan is ready to offer us a natural resources corridor for development. For realizing this objective, India needs better access to Afghanistan. Pakistan is not as yet willing to provide transit facilities through its territory to us. Therefore, India is looking at the Chabahar port in Iran as an access route to Afghanistan, as well as Central Asia. We have recently committed $100 million to this project, but US-EU sanctions on Iran are complicating such efforts to give Afghanistan alternative options for its trade and improve the conditions for foreign investment there. I feel the US government should take a positive view of Indian investments in Iran that are specifically directed at easing Afghanistan's difficult situation, which will be important for stimulating the Afghan economy, at present too dependent on foreign assistance and income derived from the presence of foreign troops on its soil. In developing trade and energy ties between Central Asia and the Indian subcontinent, a project that the US favors as part of the new Silk Road project, Afghanistan is a critical hub. The Tapi pipeline, which will bring Turkmenistan gas to Pakistan and India through Afghanistan, is a project that we support. India can fruitfully participate in projects to increase electricity grids in the region and alleviate regional energy-related problems. India is participating in several international efforts to contribute to the economic development in Afghanistan, whether it's the Istanbul process or the Heart of Asia conferences in Kabul in June 2012 and in Istanbul in April 2013. And we took the initiative ourselves to organize a Delhi Investment Summit on Afghanistan, also in June 2012. India's own bilateral aid to Afghanistan has reached $2 billion, as was noted earlier. Some see in this effort by us to seek undue influence in Afghanistan. If India's foreign assistance program as a whole is considered, and the billions of dollars that Indian companies are now investing abroad, this is not a very big sum. There is full participation of the Afghan authorities in selecting Indian assistance projects which are infrastructural, as well as geared to meeting the basic requirements of the people and localities spread over the country. A large number of our projects are, in fact, in the Pashtun areas. And India has earned great popularity because of the manner in which we have conducted ourselves. Economic development in Afghanistan and the region, I think, is essential to checkmate the growth of extremist ideologies in the region and associated terrorist activity. These concerns are uppermost in India's mind as we are most exposed as a country to terrorism and supporting ideologies. As a secular, multi-religious state, we are particularly sensitive to such threats. Any boost given to these extremist forces, even unwittingly, should be unacceptable as our security is threatened. It is with concern, therefore, that we view the outreach by US, Britain, and others to the Taliban. We are not against any genuine attempt at reconciliation if all sides want it on a basis that respects the red lines drawn by the international community for a dialogue with the Taliban. We find that these red lines are being blurred by NATO's anxiety to withdraw from Afghanistan by 2014, whatever the ground situation. Such a strategy gives the upper hand to the Taliban groups in Pakistan in negotiations, as they know time is on their side. The rhetoric remains that the reconciliation process should be Afghan-led and Afghan-owned, but the manner in which the dialogue is being structured does not suggest that it will be an independent intra-Afghan process. President Karzai has already distanced himself from the US initiative. We feel that nothing should be done behind the back of the Kabul government. Latest statements from persons close to President Karzai express the deep concern of the Kabul government about understandings that the US may have reached with Pakistan and the possibility of south and eastern Afghanistan being handed over to the Taliban, which could divide the country and trigger an all-out conflict. The end game in Afghanistan is being played out in an atmosphere of great suspicion and bickering amongst the principal parties involved. The manner in which the Doha office of the Taliban was opened has made matters worse, and Lisa Curtis referred to that. The conduct of the Taliban in declaring themselves as the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, I think, made their own endgame quite clear. The link between the Taliban and Pakistan is evident. One will have to wait and watch whether the declared US position that no single country will be allowed to dominate post-2014 Afghanistan, something which Representative Joe Crowley also mentioned, can be sustained by it when its intention is to withdraw from Afghanistan is so clear. India has not been adequately kept in the picture about the dialogue with the Taliban, despite our vital concerns being involved. We suffered when the Taliban came to power in 1996. That was the only time India had no diplomatic relations with Afghanistan, and terrorists were being trained on its soils for attacks against India. If the Taliban were to be accommodated again, India would have reason to be concerned. We find that the policies of our Western friends on Afghanistan are neither sufficiently steady nor transparent. The argument that the Taliban has various currents in it and there are moderate Taliban has been exposed, to my mind, as being hollow by what has transpired in Egypt, where the same arguments distinguishing between various strands of the Muslim Brotherhood and welcoming their assumption to power have proved devoid of worth. India does not want conditions of ethnic conflict to be created again in Afghanistan. The international community must safeguard against it. The post-2014 situation in Afghanistan remains very uncertain, as the country will be faced with a political and military transition, even when the external danger to the country has not been neutralized. The root of the problem must be dealt with, which is external support for Afghan extremists and their instrumentalization for achieving the military ambitions of a third country. So long as there are safe havens for extremists outside Afghanistan, the problem will not go away. If the Taliban retain influence in eastern and southern Afghanistan, as people say they do, it is because their staging grounds are outside. Let me conclude very quickly because I have been already signaled that time is running out. But I'd like to say that our strategic partnership with Afghanistan is not directed against any third country. The primary element in this strategic partnership is not military. India is willing to contribute to the capacity building of the Afghan National Security Forces through training and supply of non-lethal equipment so that they can better provide security to the people after the withdrawal of foreign troops from the country. Our goals are primarily economically oriented. We have no intention to supplant NATO. And finally, I'd like to make the point that it is, to my mind, a perverse notion that the real problem in Afghanistan is India-Pakistan rivalry, because I find echoes of this now in many circles. I think those who feel that their intervention in Afghanistan has not worked to stabilize the situation to the extent that they may have wanted, and now want to cut costs at all, cut costs, should not seek to transfer the responsibility for their failure onto India's shoulders. We were not responsible for the rise of religious terrorism in the region. We were not responsible for the civil war in Afghanistan. After the Soviet departure, we did not put the Taliban to power in Kabul. We had no presence, no hand in the presence of Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan. We had no responsibility for US NATO military intervention in Afghanistan. The Taliban groups or the Haqqani groups are not in India. NATO soldiers are being killed by groups operating from Pakistani soil, not ours. If the US has had to resort to drone attacks against terrorists in Pakistan, it is not because of us. I will stop there, and maybe in the question and answers session, one can elucidate some question marks that you may have in your mind. Thank you.